It has been 5 whole years since I made my rankings public. 2019 was the last time I did a top 20 coasters video, and let's just say a lot has changed since then.
What's going on, you guys? Michael here, and today we have a very long overdue video.
If you haven't noticed, over the course of the past week, I have been catching up on all these rankings, filling you guys in yearly how my list has changed. For whatever reason you guys want to start all the way back in 2021 and work your way up to 2023 to see how I got to this list today, then be my guest. Okay. First off, I have not made one of these videos in so long because I hate ranking coasters. I love to have fun on coasters, and it takes a lot for me to dislike a roller coaster or find something overly negative about it. I will always take the opportunity I am given to be positive and enjoy my experience to the fullest whenever I'm given the chance to ride a coaster. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I think that more people in this community should follow this way of life because there's just way too much hate and negativity, especially when it comes to rankings. Now, I'm not gonna pull that, oh, well, it's my opinion, so respect me. No, I mean, you either agree with me or you don't. There's no in between, and I am fully aware of that. I just need to get one thing off my chest. I don't rank my coasters by the best coaster. I rank by my favorite coaster. And yes, there is a big difference. Now, this is what I mean by favorites. Of course, the quality of the ride has a lot to do with it, but I'm also looking for how happy I was to get on the coaster, my mood that day, my reaction to the coaster, if I got to know the coaster or not, meaning the coasters I got more than one ride on will probably rank higher than the coasters I only got a single ride on. So, if you plan on going down in the comments to roast me after this, which I encourage you to do, all I ask is that you put your top 10, 15, 20, whatever it may be down below so others can do to you what you did to me. Anyway, I have to give a shout out to Kaz, who has been waiting on this video now for probably well over 2 years now. Okay, so we have 25 coasters to talk about today, and something about listing my favorites instead of the best is I'm going to talk more about my personal experience instead of going over the same repetitive layouts that we all know. Also, if it feels like I'm missing out on a big portion of a coaster, there's a very good chance that a full in-depth review will come out on that coaster later, and I'm not trying to sound like a broken record here. So, like I stated earlier, there are 25 coasters to talk about, so we better start now. Woohoo! What a great way to start this video off. The world's most expensive roller coaster. I am obsessed with this thing. Not only can I not get enough of it from a rider's perspective, but the technicality of this thing is just insane. 7 launches, I think there's like 5 switch tracks, 12 train operations, and you know this thing's crazy when I haven't even mentioned the theme yet. I'm not a Harry Potter fan at all, and I had no idea what was going on half the time in the wizarding world. But the storytelling aspect and presentation of this coaster made me feel like I knew what was actually going on throughout the entire ride. The layout is fantastic, offering forces in the majority of places that you would think, and it really gives the I'm on a motorbike type of vibe. This is by far the best coaster under 100 feet and without a doubt the best family coaster ever built. So going from one extreme to the next, let's talk about one of the craziest inverts ever. For a short time in 2022, this was in fact my favorite invert. And now after the recency bias wore off, this is where it happily sits. This is by far the best coaster in the park and is truly one of a kind with the unbeatable first half. Going through these elements with speed like that from almost hyper heights is truly indescribable. And not to mention one of the greatest inversions ever. This Cobra Roll really does take a good jab at trying to kill you. The only thing really holding this back is that mid-course, because it makes or breaks the second half. Break, not break. Get it? I crack myself up sometimes. Anyway, to my surprise, my first ride on this coaster, the mid-course didn't even touch us. And let me tell you, that second half is just a miniature first half, with me even starting to lose feeling in my legs on that helix. You can already tell this is very much a guilty pleasure coaster for me, and one that I will never not praise. So this is an interesting one. On my trip to Cedar Point, I would have loved to get to know this coaster a little more, getting more than just at least 2 rides on it. But I'll take what I can get, I guess. To my surprise, this thing was pulling crazy lines in early June, and I could not get away without waiting more than 50 minutes for it. While I absolutely love and adore this coaster, there are other things in Cedar Point's lineup that I would much rather spend my time at. Now, to talk about that one part that everyone's waiting for me to talk about. Yes, obviously they're good. The ejector did not bother me at all, and it was quite fun to feel the absolute rawness that these hills offer. And not even talking about the hills, the coaster overall has that really cool raw feeling. This is by far the most intense invert I've been on. The layout is great and the pacing of everything is flawless, and I never really got the hate of the dead spot that wasn't even 3 seconds long. Other inverts suffer from much worse dead spots. This is the one coaster that I need a major rewrite on. For whatever reason, my half day at this park, my mindset was to focus on the other coasters this park has to offer. More specifically, Icebreaker, because of how much that ride really shocked and surprised me. It's good, but I feel like it has no character when it comes to a B&M Hyper. It's definitely the best Hyper I've been on by B&M, but by the time I rode it, I've already felt like I've been on it 10 different times before. That's really what's keeping this coaster and, well, this model out of the top 20. This is Magnum, just better. There, I said it. Magnum, just better. You see, where Magnum, you have to sit through this layout, and yes, I mean sit through this layout, waiting just to get to that one good part. And while that good part is so good that it secures a spot on this list, Phoenix, on the other hand, has a similar finale to Magnum, but it's what the coaster does beforehand that makes this a better ride for me. While Magnum's back row can sneak in a few forces, mostly on that drop, Phoenix, on the other hand, has some form of airtime and the majority of rows leading up to this ending. The back offers weak floater on the first drop and major drops after each turnaround, not to mention these turnarounds offer some crazy lats. Not only that, but everything after the double up is just pure insanity, giving some of the wildest bursts of ejector on any coaster. While I do think Magnum has stronger ejector, Phoenix just has more hills, which means more ejector. Phoenix also offers a boatload more forces than Magnum does, and has much better restraints. This is the best invert I have been on. Now, I know I said Alpengeist was my guilty pleasure pick when it comes to this model, and Afterburn is the most intense from this model. This coaster is the best overall package. This ride does a great job of giving you the best of all the inverts. You keep your speed nicely like it's the first half of Alpengeist, you get the intensity of Afterburn, and along with all these aspects you also have the length. I will say though, this ride does suffer from a pretty noticeable dead spot, but somehow it's able to recover from it to end with a bang. My most notable rides on this were my first back row ride and a front row rain ride, which after some uncertainty was the ride that secured this coaster as my favorite invert. I love this coaster. This coaster has caught on to some big popularity lately, and I would like to proudly point out that I was here expressing my love and glazing the crap out of this ride before everyone jumped on the bandwagon of loving this coaster. This coaster showed me what GCI is truly about, and it was nothing like the junk at Hershey Park. Wildcat and Lightning Racer proved to be very outdated when it comes to these new gen GCI creations, and this coaster left me with a feeling that I absolutely crave. Not only will I happily admit that this coaster has better pacing than the other failure across the park, but during my first visit on a rainy day, I was able to ride this with wet rails. And if you know anything about GCIs with wet track, they do not mess around. Then on my revisit to the park in early 2023, my love and craving for this coaster led me to a marathon that cost me just about $90. Was it worth it, you might ask? Yeah, I'd say so. Anyway, that's the day that secured this as my second favorite conventional wooden coaster. This is by far the best B&M looper that I've been on, and I'd say the best looper they've ever made. On my visit all the way back in 2022, I was able to snag 2 rides on this beast, one in the back row for my first ride, and with the use of single rider line and my incredible luck, I also got a front row ride. See what I did there? I said incredible. The coaster's name is Incredible Hulk. Okay, this coaster reeks of intensity and really brings the power. Not only is the launch still not talked about enough in the conversation of launches, but this thing refuses to lose power, even in the second half. In the front row, the opening sequence of elements has to be some of my favorite of any coaster. The view mixed with the launch mixed with the setting makes this, well, incredible. I desperately needed re-rides on this coaster. Not only were my last rides in the coaster's opening year of 2018, but after riding so many new RMCs, I was really starting to forget how good this coaster was, or wasn't. which made it really hard to keep ranking this thing. Well, in 2023 I was able to change that and finally get re-rides on this thing. It's good, like really good, but it definitely doesn't go without its flaws. The ejector is killer and probably some of the most sustained ejector that any RMC has. Not only that, but the transitioning from traditional ejector to off-axis ejector is a really neat concept. Where this coaster really loses me is the inversions. Some of these older RMCs, the inversions do a really good job of matching the layout intensity-wise, but for the intensity of this airtime, the inversions can't really seem to keep up. I really do enjoy the drop, and I remember liking this all the way back in 2018. My 2023 ride, the two final inversions left me pretty underwhelmed due to the fact that they offer more of a floaty sensation instead of the whippier and in my opinion much more preferred sensation. And even with the floaty sensation, there are other RMCs that I find just do it better. Fun fact, this used to be my favorite roller coaster. From 2015 to 2017, this held my number one as my favorite. Here we are all the way in 2024, 9 years later, and it comfortably sits at number 15. Not too bad. Not only have I yet to find a launch like this one, but it proves to be the most unique coaster of its kind. A coaster that is a part of a dying breed too. The layout after the top hat, followed by a launch that can compete with every other accelerator, launches this miles above the competition, and dare I even say it's the best. The layout is probably the most unique coaster layout where the majority of the elements are not only things you have never heard of, but they're also one-to-one with just Stormrunner. The forces that this coaster provides are quite good too, offering really neat feelings all over this layout. This is the better RMC. After riding both these coasters this year, and a long debate with myself over which one is better, it's obvious that this is the clear winner. Not only is this coaster not too stressed out making a left turn every once in a while, but the collection of elements here is also better. While the three camelbacks are irreplaceable on Timbers, arguably the best moment on the coaster is this off-axis hill. And well, Timbers only has one of those. On Wicked Cyclone, that's every turnaround. Not only that, but this off-axis hill and the double down offer crazy strong ejector to try its best to make up for not having the camelbacks. But to add the cherry on top, the inversion game is also pretty good. This thing offers a considerable amount of whip, and these offer a nice mix between floatiness and decent hang time. Not to mention, I also caught this coaster on a day where it made the dreaded third lap seem like it was light work, and absolutely blew into the final brake run all day long. I'm gonna be totally honest with you guys, this did not really blow me away. I wasn't totally sure where I was gonna rank this, but I think this is a good spot. This coaster really runs off of pure fun, and that's what really makes this coaster for me. But it's sad to see hills like this offer absolutely nothing. Big, beautiful camelbacks just do nothing. It really makes me cry. That drop, along with the turnaround, and actually turns in general, are what really carry this coaster for me. Really, it just goes back to that feeling of pure fun. Oh yeah, and this crew really needs to get their crap together, because it's embarrassing how bad they are. Not only did they not have a care in the world both days I was there, but on my second day, 2 rides should have been totally manageable with a 10-minute line during early access in the morning, right? Nope. It took 40 minutes, and they also took a train off 3 minutes into the operating day on a Saturday. I don't know, man. That's pretty unacceptable.
Alright, yo, what's up, nerds? We're iPhone vlogging now because it took way longer than it ever should have. So they took a train off.
Yo, no shot, guys. They're taking a train off.
Then finally it put us on. All of these were like 5+ minute dispatches. So in around 40 minutes we only got 1 ride because I don't know why, if I'm being totally honest. It shouldn't have taken that long. So Millie is knocked out. Horrible start to the actual normal operating day. You can see we are actually trying to get, like, we're going against the current right now, trying to get to Valravn. Slightly annoyed. We thought we were gonna get 2 rides in 40 minutes, which should have been completely accomplishable, but now we didn't.
It's just sad what's happening to this coaster. It makes me sad knowing that it'll never be what it once was. This at one point was as high as my number 5, and as much as I would love to, I can't justify putting it any higher right now. Knowing that any ride I get now on this coaster will be worse than its former self is really sad and depressing. I would do a lot to ride this coaster again for the first time, and I'm super fortunate and lucky that I was able to revisit the park in 2023 and get a few more rides on this thing. Oh man, this is just too sad and way too depressing. This is probably the biggest sleeper hit for me this year. I thought going into it that the lap bar would be way too much for me and that Tiny Beast on the other side of the park was going to be the better ride. Well, I am glad to say I was wrong.
Alright, let's talk about the hyper known as Superman. Recency bias is really kicking in here. I prefer that over Millennium Force. Just by a hair. Maybe this can put the final coffin in Millennium Force a bit later on. But holy crap, I don't know why I was sleeping on that coaster so much. You know, I was really thinking to myself, how good can it be? I mean, it got the new restraints, everybody hates them. Has a straight drop. It looks like it has major pacing issues. And then this thing just freaking delivered in every single way possible.
I think it's a little worse than Sky Rush.
A little worse than Sky Rush is a very, very fair take. Whoever hates on those restraints needs to touch some grass because they are literally just RMC restraints.
It does kind of hurt your shins a little bit.
Hurts your shins because of that weird little thing they got.
Not only would I like to call everyone out for gaslighting me into thinking that these restraints were going to be bad, you guys really need to grow up. These are just RMC restraints. That little piece isn't actually irritating unless you are just trying to push your leg into it. While it may only be 2 spots ahead of Millie, it's miles, and I mean miles better, and the quality gap between the two is substantial. This is what I wish Millie was. Kicking us off with the top 10 is a coaster I got to know pretty well over the past summer in every aspect. I know this coaster in and out, and my god is it a masterpiece. Not only is this one of, if not my favorite RMC layouts, this thing is diverse. I don't want to talk about it too much here because I plan on making a full, very in-depth review on this bad boy sometime in the near to distant future. I would also like to point out that I have worked hard to perfect my top 10, and all of these coasters are truly elite. Not only will the 10 of these go back and forth for being my all-time favorites, but I had to really think hard to put them in the order that you're seeing now. Not only did I have to do a little life or death scenario for ranking these 10 coasters, but right now they're in a really freaking good, presentable order that I am really proud of. I love this coaster. I know I've said that a lot, but I love this coaster. This coaster gave me a sense, a feeling I haven't felt in years. A feeling that I did not know I was still capable of feeling. Once you start getting on so many coasters, you lose sight of what those first few good coasters felt like. And in this case, back in 2018, I got on I-305 for the first time. That was a core moment for my Thuzy life, and well, Maverick really gave me that same feeling I felt over half a decade ago. I am more than happy to welcome this into my top 10 this year. I don't think there's a more simple coaster out there. Simple, yet complicated. Sounds like a woman. This coaster is the basic Waco of all coasters. What was I writing at 2 a.m.? Oh my lord. This coaster is the basic Waco of all coasters. It looks sweet and innocent on the outside, but is absolutely crazy on the inside. This is like you letting your uncle fly your new $2,000 drone, but he has absolutely no idea what he's doing, and he's trying everything he can not to crash. Also, that pool noodle of restraint is absolutely unbeatable. Going from one PA Hyper to another, this coaster will always hold a special place in my heart. I have more rides on this coaster than any other, with well over 500 rides and around 173 of them being in back left alone. This thing is very deserving of my number 7 spot. The drop has to be the best first drop on any coaster, and even with all that airtime, I have to say that my favorite element still has to be that Stangle Dive. Don't get me wrong, this thing is good. Not flawless, like some people said, but it's good. Anyone who tries to tell you differently is just wrong. This thing has the length, it has the forces, it has the speed, and while I was there, it had the pacing, cause the mid-course was not touching us at all. My one major issue with this ride is that there's no way to get the complete package. You have to ride it in the front for the first half to be good, and for the second half to be elite, you have to ride it in the back.
The airtime, out of this world, so much of it. I'm also disappointed that the Outer Bank didn't deliver as much as I really wanted it to. I thought the Outer Bank would be much better. We got front row, because why not? Just to test the waters. RMCs tend to run much different in the front than in the back. Sweet Jesus, dude. I think I like the front half more in the front. The laterals on the top hat.
The top hat and the Outer Bank are better in the front, but the second half is better in the back.
I get it, it's not that major, but hey, on the flip side, who wouldn't want to ride this coaster twice? Okay, so I'm actually really excited to talk about this one because I feel like for whatever reason I have to defend myself for putting this here. Regardless of what Toro is now, you have to remember that my last rides on this were back in 2019. Those were what I can only describe as peak Toro, and those are the rides that will forever give this coaster this sort of placement on my list. This manages to mix two of my favorite things. It starts out with extreme doses of Skyrush level ejector and ends off with an I-305 intensity driven ending. This thing is truly like a wooden Superman that is 50 times more aggressive. Now, for how this coaster runs now, it actually scares me to want to get back on this because I know that it will never be as good as my last rides ever were. As much as I absolutely love this coaster, I don't want to think any less of it. Okay, so take El Toro's ending and make an entire coaster out of it. But not only that, make it have a 300 plus foot drop. This is the most intense roller coaster in the world and was my number one from 2018 all the way up until 2021. After half a decade, I was finally able to get some much needed re-rides on this thing, and I missed it a lot. This will forever be in my heart as my first favorite roller coaster, and is my number 0, if you will. If I had to list the best coasters I've been on, this would without a doubt probably be my number 1. That drop is incredible and the pacing is great. Back-to-back wave turns, the death roll. Why am I even talking about this thing's layout? It's flawless. For those who say this coaster has a dead spot, well, you're wrong. This is one of, if not the most perfect roller coasters right now. Everything from the layout to the theming to the diversity of the forces, this ride is everything. Cannot complain about a thing at all. Nothing bad ever happened. No. All of my rides, including those summer sunset rides, were some of the most magical moments I've ever had on a roller coaster. I owe a lot of my channel to this coaster too. Because of it, in theory, I made back all of the money it took for me to spend a week in Florida to ride all of their roller coasters, and then some. I owe this ride a lot, and that's why it holds a spot on my channel banner, and as my second favorite roller coaster. Well, this is my favorite roller coaster. All the way back in 2021, this coaster gave me a feeling I've never felt before. Not only on a coaster, but just a feeling I've never felt in general. Since then, I've been trying to chase that feeling that Fury gave me. The drop is one of the best, most sustained, longest feelings of airtime, I think probably out of any coaster for now. Not only that, even hyping this thing up, it still managed to blow me away. The unexpected forces and unexpected places are really what make this an 11 out of 10 experience for me. The sense of speed is second to none, and the sunset dusk rides to end my day at Carowinds were more than I could ever ask for. Well, there you have it. My most recent updated 2023 top 25 favorite roller coasters I've been on. Once again, I expect you guys to give me everything you got in those comments, but just remember to leave your own rankings down below so people can do the same to you. With all that out of the way, I'll see you guys in the next one.